Good morning, everyone. This is Henish Pulico with the California Home Company, powered by eXp Realty. There's a lot of news going on right now with the market, the housing market in San Diego, across the nation. We're seeing that sales are slowing down, inventory time is increasing, and inventories are increasing. And I'm not sure exactly how this is going to pan out, but I do have some really important thoughts that I've put together that I really do want to share. So, first few things that I've noticed, and I've been doing market updates for the last several months. I've been trying to keep good attention to this because I don't want to be caught flat-footed like I was last time in 2008 when the market turned on us. So for one, I've been watching foreclosures. For the last few years, it's only been about 25 properties per month that have been getting foreclosed in San Diego, which sounds like a pretty reasonable number, but that's still more than a house per day when you consider business days. That number, if it went up 10 or 20 or 30%, that'd be noticeable. In the last 2 months, it's gone up over 250%. So now there's almost 70 foreclosures going up every month, and that number is going to keep increasing. I think we're going to see that because the Keep Your Home California programs ended, and that saved a lot of people's homes. And then it's just time where those properties that have been in default for so long, there's actually over 2,100 properties that are distressed, which means they're late enough on their mortgage where the banks filed a notice of default or notice of trustee sale. So that number is huge, and the bank's getting through some of those properties by starting to foreclose on them, especially if they're not going to qualify for a modification. Secondly, we're seeing that properties are on the market a lot longer. We're not getting multiple offers on weekend one. It's taking 1 or 2 or 3 months, and there's not as many buyers out there. And maybe in the number of inventory properties have increased as well. We're seeing this up and down the coast. I've had people telling me they're seeing the same thing up in Seattle and Portland, even in LA, where I've got properties listed for sale as well, that they're not flying off the shelf like they used to, which is good news for buyers, and it's only not great news for sellers, but it is what it is. The market might have been too hot, and it's starting to cool down. So what's next? If you don't own and you can qualify to purchase a home, it's still probably a better idea to buy than to rent. The reason being is that let's just assume a $500,000 house as our baseline here. If you're buying a $500,000 house, and if you're concerned that the market's going to turn and maybe the property values drop 5% in a year, that's still only $25,000, right? That makes it maybe a $500,000 house to a $475,000. But if you're renting a $500,000 house, you're probably paying $2,500 a month, which comes to $30,000 a year. So worst case, you lose 5% and the value goes down to $475,000, but that's versus having to pay $30,000 a year in rent, which someone else is using to pay for their mortgage. So when you consider that, does it make sense to potentially lose some money if there's depreciation, or continue to pay rent to someone else even if there is depreciation? So I would argue that it's better to own the property instead of renting and hoping that the prices come down a huge amount, which they may or may not, because we live in San Diego. It's a beautiful town, and there's still more people that want to live here than can afford to live here. So even a little price drop would get people to come back into the market. The fourth point I want to bring up is that people get mortgage rate amnesia. I think we see the rates that we're getting now, the 4.5%, with good credit and conventional loan, and they're forgetting that back in the last recession, the best rate you could get was a 6.5%, and a lot of times it was 7%, if you could even get the mortgage, right? The credit lenders were providing have dried up quite a bit, and you weren't seeing as much lending available. So when the prices were the cheapest, people couldn't get loans, or the loans were expensive. So comparing a 4.5 to a 6.5 rate, back to this $500,000 house, if you're putting down 10% and getting a $450,000 mortgage, 4.5% on an interest rate would be a $2,300 payment. Conversely, if you had to get a 6.5% interest rate, that would be about $2,850. So that's $550 more per month, or about $6,600 per year. Even after 3 years, that's $33,000 in extra interest that you're paying. So with that, again, keep that in mind. Rates are good right now when you look at the spectrum of rates throughout the history of this, and you want to get locked in at today's rate as opposed to the rates that might come if there is a recession or roll back in prices in a year or two, or even later this year. Who knows when it's going to happen? Rates are good though now. As it comes to with real estate, there's always those 3 rules that are so important, and that's location, location, location. If you've got a great house that you like in a great location and you can afford to buy it, I would say take the jump, get into it. because hopefully you're going to be staying there for the next 5-10 years, if not longer. And in the long run, real estate's always a pretty good investment, especially here in San Diego. So does it make sense to wait and see if there's a price drop? I would say it's not worth the risk of continuing to pay rent or the higher rates that might come along with trying to buy at that higher price point. So if you find a great home where you want to buy it, I would say you should buy it. And if you're not ready to buy or sell, fortunately our company does construction, and during a recession or a shift in the market is when a lot of people remodel their house because they know they're going to be in that house for the next 5-10 years, locked in because they don't want to sell at a low point. Might as well make the house what they want out of it and get the best enjoyment out of it. That's it for me, Henish Pulko with the California Home Company, powered by eXp Realty. Thanks for listening.